Mary Dowd and Hawa Joseph managed to escape and were rescued by military operatives in the area. And they explained that there's still tens of captives from that raid in 2014 that are still in captivity. Some have been married. In fact, one of the two women who was recently rescued had been married off, and her husband was killed in a previous military raid. Now, at the time, Nigerians were all rightfully shocked and horrified that such an attack could happen. But since then,
We've learned that many more can happen.
we have witnessed several more incidents. And from each of these further incidents, there's still people in captivity. Now, kudos to the military because it was this recent military
The
operations.
different incursions that actually helped them to escape, right?
Yes. So, in the course of trying to flush out, the captives are running to hide, and then the ones who are determined to escape and preserve their lives head off in a different direction. So, this is congratulations to them for this, but they mustn't stop. It must be a continuous and consistent process to flush these guys out of the areas they're currently in. Now, the terrorists are hiding in mountainous areas, areas that have difficult terrains to approach. But it's a combined effort of both the Air Force and the ground troops. The Air Force continually bombards these areas with aerial bombs, forcing them to come out. Now, when they're flushed out, the ground troops pick them up. And we must also collect the intelligence these ladies have brought concerning the camps and utilize them in subsequent operations. And our thoughts continue to go out to the families of people who are still in captivity.
The families that are still waiting.
Yes, not knowing whether their children are alive or dead. And for the two ladies that were recently rescued, they should be given proper psychological care because let's not mince any words here. They've been through a lot psychologically. The trauma has to be dealt with medically. And one of them left with a baby. That baby has to be treated to, has to be looked after medically. So let us pray that this is the beginning of a continuous and deliberate process to flush them out and rescue everyone else who is still in captivity.
So this is, of course, it's knowing that these two women have come out, have been escaped, and then were aided in their escape. Is wonderful news because now they can be reunited with the loved ones that they still have on ground.
Correct.
But the fact that this is a matter that has taken that has it spanned administrations, two administrations at this. Uh, I can safely say that more needs to be done. And right now, this is us in with hindsight, looking back, saying how come we didn't do more? But well, here we are. So we can only look to the future and hope that, and not just hope, but also demand that more is done. From the New Telegraph, PVC, INEC to extend registration by 2 months. This, according to the House of Representatives, saying that the Independent National Electoral Commission has accepted that the need to extend the ongoing continuous voter registration by 60 days, in line with the resolution passed by the House. Now, we had the chairman of the House Committee on Electoral Matters, Aisha Duku of APC Gombe, who disclosed this yesterday, and also said that it's not just has it been extended, but it's also going to be done during weekends. Fidel, I'm coming to you for this one.
I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? We have to um, ensure that enough people who are eligible to vote, who are willing to vote, are captured by our, electoral body. That's INEC. So the cries have been out there for months. I'm just happy that INEC and our lawmakers, as well as the courts, have been listening, and now we have an extension. But it's important for people to, capture the words of the lawmaker for Gombe. That's Aisha. Sorry, I didn't catch her last name. Duku. Aisha
Aisha
Duku.
Duku.
Yeah. So now you can approach the local government offices, the INEC offices, wherever you are going to try and register. You can approach them on weekends. For those who maybe are caught up during the day in their offices, can go there on weekends. They are supposed to. I mean, the Mrs. Aisha Duku said that they're going to make that announcement. They're supposed to have more people. They're supposed to have more machines. The process should be seamless. There's supposed to be security operatives there.
Okay, now, Fidel, as you're speaking, the only words I hear are supposed to, right? Now, let's talk about the reality and the reality that's being reported by people who have been do I want to say besieging at this point the various INEC offices, because we've heard reports and reports have been going around and videos as well have been going around on social media of people at their local INEC offices saying that these people are not turning up. And
Good.
if we're turning up on time. They're turning up 3-4 hours later and then slow walking the process. People have accused INEC of slow walking the process.
I mean, Shokpe, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, we had this conversation earlier how INEC officials in one certain area were not there on time. Now, the truth is this: I want, I like that Nigerians are demanding for these things. We're demanding for better processes. We're demanding for better service. So, I mean, there's only so much we can do from this side, but we have to keep doing. We have to keep mounting the pressure, putting out videos there. Please tag INEC, let them see that they're officers, and also state the location where you are when you are putting out those videos. I saw a video that went viral where people were asking the INEC officials to open the door so they can come and vote, and there were even soldiers there. So I want people to keep the pressure on, because it is this kind of pressure that has made INEC to extend the registration process, and the lawmakers are hearing, they're listening, the courts are hearing and they're listening. So I mean, what I would just say is keep mounting pressure. Please go and register for your PVCs. And when you do register for your PVCs, that is your permanent voters cards, verify it online. Go to, I think it's www.cvr. That is a continuous voter registration at INEC. If you cannot remember that, Google INEC. It's pretty much the first or second link that comes up on your web page, and then you will see where you can verify that your voters card has been duly registered and you are eligible to vote in the area where you have registered. The same thing if you're doing a transfer. So you can always check these things online, as well as approaching their offices to check. So I mean, that's just my take.
All right, and keep on sending your messages in to 0809 440 WhatsApp. I'm going to read this one in from Damien, who says, are they going to release funding for the weekend work or release funding to enhance the efficiency of the process? Extending the time is not enough. And Yinka Bolu says, says people have no right or whatsoever to accuse INEC without also accusing themselves. The process started on the 28th of June 2021. Please, what were they doing then? We're happy for the 60-day extension, but I hope they don't relax again and wait for 2 weeks to the end of the extension. Can we just stop this last minute rush for once? Well, to be fair, it's called continuous voter registration for a reason. It's supposed to be continuous. Now, INEC imposed a deadline, which people, and by the way, people had been going to INEC offices. And how much in advance do you want people to stop going to INEC offices? How long in advance? Because this is not something that has just happened now. This is something that's been going on for quite a bit of time. Anyway, we move on because more stories still on Freshly Pressed. Let's take a look at this next one from The Guardian as we come back to the perennial problem of petrol. From The Guardian newspaper, petrol, federal government insists on 165 naira pump price, advises against panic buying. That's all I'm going to read, Mr. C, because I need your take on this. Is this with the reality on ground and then the reality we're hearing from the federal government, at which point, which reality is going to win out?
Okay, thank you, Shopper. So, as we're all aware, the crisis, the fuel scarcity that has been prevalent in Abuja has finally come home to Lagos. Now, the federal government insists that petrol is a regulated commodity and will continue to sell at 165 naira. Now, the problem with that position is this: the price of crude oil on the international market continues to increase. As we all know, none of the state owned refineries is actually working now. So we're importing all the petrol we need. Now, throw into this boiling mix the Ukraine-Russian conflict, right? Now, when the petrol finally gets here, there is a landing cost, which presently is about 14 naira a liter, right? So the ex depot price is about 155 naira. When you add the landing cost to it, you should end up about 195 naira. Yet the federal government insists that it's 165. So that 13 naira differential is borne by who? That's the first point. Ostensibly, the federal government will have us believe that it's the one shouldering the cost. Now, this year, the sum of
To which the
just
marketers
over
say,
6 trillion naira was budgeted for the fuel subsidy. Shopper, guess what? June isn't over. We've almost blown through that sum. There is very little or nothing left for the second half of the year. Now, why does the federal government continue to insist on regulating the price of petrol? And even with this fuel subsidy, the price is not uniform. They've introduced the bridging allowance. It's still not uniform. The idea of the bridging allowance is we will pay transporters to take the petrol from Lagos to other parts of the country so it can be sold at a uniform price. But guess what? That's not the case. In Abuja, last week, someone I know bought petrol, 10 liters, 3,500 naira. In the East, for the last 4 or 5 years,
350 naira
in the
per
East,
liter.
yeah. So in the Southeast, petrol is not sold at 165. And anyone who goes to the East regularly knows this. It's not sold at 165.
What
In
are
the
we talking, 500?
Northwest, somewhere between 300 and 400. And it's drive in and collect, not buy on the road. Drive into the station and pay the price and move out. In the north, same thing. So when will we get to the point where our leaders will finally understand that these monies that are being voted or set aside for fuel subsidies are not getting to the people who need them and can be used for more
Mr.
profitable
C,
ventures?
why do you assume that they don't understand?
Well, so we have to assume they don't understand because their actions strongly suggest that. Because if you say they understand, then you cannot explain the steps they're taking.
Really, you can't? There's no one word for it that will explain perfectly?
I
No?
mean, even if we
Okay.
use the C word, when you think about it, Mr. C, is it really, can we really handle? I mean, I'm not saying it's the best, but I'm just one of the people who like to believe, can we really handle stripping everything off? I mean, we see economies
To
where
which I would ask you, Fidel, why are the refineries still not working?
So
Why are we spending billions of dollars yearly, which, by the way, could go to making refineries work, and amongst other things, and the refineries are still not working? So where exactly are all those billions of dollars going?
okay, so
Is what
Shopware,
I would
apart
say.
from that, Fido, the way markets run, it's the interplay between demand and supply, right? Prices are determined or should be determined by the interaction of demand and supply. Now, if your customers say we will not pay beyond a certain price, then the people supplying it will adjust. Look at all the commodities that are sold. They're now coming in very small sizes because they now realize that customers cannot afford the previously large sizes. Everything now is in a sachet.
Now,
Almost everything's now in a sachet, but it was never like that
it's a
before.
crisis, Mr.
now,
C.
Mr.
You
C.
take out.
Fidel, unfortunately, I am gonna have to cut you short there because I want to move on to other stories, and we have messages coming in. But very quickly, I will take all of those after this quick break.
You can't just remove subsidy like that, Mr. C. I won't lie
No,
to
you
you.
have to.
You,
You
I mean,
have
it
to.
sounds, it makes sense. It makes sense, right? In paper, but in reality, bread cost crisis in
So I am
France.
a vet.
Bread increase in price of bread.
Okay,
Yes,
you
they have a
haven't
history
removed
of
it,
that.
right? Bread moved from 500 to 900 as you didn't remove it. Oh,
So at the end of the day, we're all suffering right now. But the issue is, this is a case of frog in a pot,
In
right? In
pot,
water.
yeah.
We're boiling. We just don't. Well, we do know it.
We do know
We're
it's
feeling
boiling.
it, but
6 trillion put in other parts of the economy. we would have started to see the first signs, the first fruit of that investment. Six
Mississippi.
trillion
Oh,
into
we're back.
fuel subsidies. Come on.
I don't know economics. I'm just a boring lawyer. What do I know?
Studio. All right, getting into your messages now. Reading this one out from Aussie. Thank you for the message. Saying, so remember when I said the federal government was. I don't remember when you said this, but let's see. Aussie goes on to say, government insisting petrol at is 165 is ridiculous. As far back as March, there has been no petrol in Abuja. The government is detached from the reality of the people, and above all, corruption and greed is the order of the day. Whilst Rita says, for INEC office inefficiencies, we should increase pressure on them the way we put pressure on our banks. We hold our banks accountable because we keep our money there and because our money pays the banks, pays the bank staff. We should start seeing it the same way for government offices too. They're funded by taxes that we pay, proceeds from our natural resources, etc., says Ovis. And this one in from Jibril from Okasa says, in a normal country, you remove subsidy and use the proceeds to fund other infrastructure. Jibril, how did you know what we were talking about? Are you up on YouTube to fund other infrastructure? But in Nigeria, we don't trust the government with the proceeds. And let's see, Yinka Bolu sending in another one saying, people have compared the process to passports, driver's license, it all well and good, but do you know what the difference is between PVC, catching your PVC, and the others? Revenue. One generates revenue, the other doesn't. Hence, it can't literally be continuous. I know of a person who already registered some years back and now went on to register afresh. How do we reconcile that? If INEC don't get time to reconcile the database, I think if we had done the needful as and when due, we should be dragging INEC to work with NIMSI or banks so that existing data can be used instead. All right, let's move it along to another article. Now, we got this one in from the Punch. 723 million naira dispersed to 1,779 Ogun farmers in 2021. And Fidel, I'll come to you for this because the Central Bank of Nigeria's Belkusa branch has said that this number of farmers in Ogun State have benefited from agricultural loans in 2021, saying that the disbursement was part of the Agricultural Credit Guarantee Scheme Fund that was established and to guarantee credit facilities extended to farmers by banks. So, what do you make of all of this?
I mean, I like the awareness, right? Ogun State awards for best farmers, in 2021, and the CBN branch controller at Ogun State in Abeokuta was actually saying that this is how much they're dispersing to farmers who are, and they have different criterias for giving these farmers these awards. I mean, from the kind of crops they're producing to how much they're selling to how well they repay the loans that they are giving. A lot of people don't know, but sometimes when people approach these government institutions to get loans, they just see it as, oh, we're collecting free money, and there's
Free
no
money that.
exactly, and there's no accountability. So for the people who are taking these resources and judiciously using this capital, the Ogun State government in collaboration with the CBN, they're giving awards to these farmers, and we cannot overemphasize the fact that food supply, being sustainable with our local produce is very important. So I'm here for it. I just hope this continues and is replicated in other states.
Because when we talk about food security or food insecurity and making sure that we actually have food security as a nation, part of this is ensuring that our farmers, the agricultural sector, has access to finance, which is what CBN is doing with this, right?
Indeed, and people are always saying, that the CBN should, mind its business and do finance and stick to what they're supposed
Actually,
to.
let me just pop in this message from Moaid, who says CBN is like a student excelling in extracurricular activities but failing gloriously in academics. That is the story of CBN. Accounts of 3 years, most basic thing is still outstanding from 2018. I know that Waida has actually sent messages in about this.
Look, we want our currency to stay stable. We want our currency to appreciate. If we do not look inwards, this naira, there is no secret to it, right? Black market rates, CBN rates, parallel rates, whatever you want to call it. If we do not produce, if we do not first shift from reliance on oil, shift to non-oil produce it and be sustainable in our own economy, and then take that those resources and put it out, export it to Africa, West Africa, and the world, the naira cannot get up. It's not possible.
So when it comes to this conversation, and I don't want to take too much time, but if we're looking at the loans, we need to start classifying what breed of farmers it is. Is it smallholder farmers? How does that then help us when it comes to our forex situation in terms of exporting? How does that help?
Baby steps,
Basically.
Shopper. Baby
Okay.
steps. Baby
All
steps.
right, all right. Baby steps it is. From the Guardian newspaper, Railway Corporation generates 5.70 billion naira from passengers in 2021. Mr. C, I'm sure a lot of people will say, what about the passengers' lives and securities? But I want to hear what you want to say.
Okay, thank you, Chopin. So this is good news because we're seeing increases in passenger numbers, in passenger revenue, in cargo lifted year on year from 2020 to 2021. Now, with respect to revenue, it increased by 226% from 1.75 billion to 5.7 billion, which is a very good increase. Same thing with cargo, same thing with number of passengers. But where I'm going is this.
Mm-hmm.
We have now seen, or we now see that there is a lot of potential in the railways, and it's an alternative means of transport, and it will decongest our highways of traffic, both cargo and passengers. So, on this momentum, can the NRC, can the government sit down, figure out a roadmap to get in private investors into the rail sector of our transport industry? There's no reason why we can't have a fast rail service from Lagos to Port Harcourt, from Lagos to Abuja, from Lagos to Kaduna. Very fast. That'll take you there 2, 3, 4 hours, and people will pay. Nobody wants to sit on a bus or in a vehicle driving for 10, 12 hours, being disturbed by policemen at checkpoints looking to get money they don't deserve.
Yeah. Okay. Mrs. E, one thing that I want to put in is this question of commuting because we've seen there is this well sometimes it comes across as unstated because we don't talk about it very much, but this idea or this issue of commuting wherein people are saying if they have a fast and reliable service that they can take without looking around for IEDs, wouldn't we see more people going to less congestion in, let's say, a Lagos and suburbs starting to flourish?
I was going to continue with that. Now, in serious countries, right, you find that a lot of people who work in the urban areas don't necessarily live there. Examples: the City of London, New York. A good number of the people who work in the City of London do not live in London. They live outside London. A good number of the people who work in New York do not live in New York. They stay in New Jersey and beyond. Now, we say Lagos is congested, Lagos is overpopulated. If the railways to Ibadan were faster than what they are now, I know some Nigerians who will relocate to Ibadan.
In an instant.
And what you will find is the quality of life will improve. House rents will drop because when the demand has dropped, right, and there's excess supply, the prices must drop. So I'm looking forward to a day, if possible, where we have multiple options by means of rail travel, that we do not have to sit on the road or buy expensive air tickets. And I'll tell you what, when there's rail available to the majority of Nigerians, right, you will find that the prices of the other modes of transport will be adjusted. Maybe not significantly, but there'll be an adjustment to reflect the current realities. And the truth is, rail has the capacity to carry the largest amount of people per trip. So it's something the government should look into, and security must be taken very seriously.
All right, so very quickly, let's take a look at this one. Premium time statutory delegates. Why we step down motion to override Buhari, according to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila. This stepping down was because it was not properly presented. This for an anticlimax, but okay, go ahead.
I mean, look, the you must appreciate that Femi Gbajabiamila, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, that name is really long, is, he knows how to pick out his details, right? So the amendment of this, I mean, this electoral act I think has been one of the most controversial, and so there are moves to amend it, and then we have this senator.
No, they're not amending Fidel. The president refused to sign. And what the PDP representative was trying to do was to get National Assembly to exercise its legal right to veto that refusal, override him, and pass the law.
Yes, yes, Mr. C. So I mean, this is we
I
already
love it
have
when
an
there are two lawyers in
an
the
act.
house.
We already have an act, right? So
There's not yet an act because it hasn't been signed.
Yeah.
It's still a bill.
Yeah, so we have an act. We have an electoral act already.
Okay.
Right? That is fresh. The ink isn't dry on it. But now we have an amended bill now to override what we already have existing. And now the president is saying that we just had one act, and he's saying I'm not going to sign. And then we have the senator from Delta State saying that since the president is not going to sign, we should, veto his powers. And then Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila is saying that before we can veto his powers, this bill has to come back to the National Assembly and go through the same process again. And we need a 2/3 majority before we can say, is it worth it or not? I mean,
So
And we've come to the end of the show. I know we want to go on, but we've come to the end of the show. Very quickly, I will read out a couple of messages up on WhatsApp. Got this one in from Dadox, who says, what would it cost the government to end subsidy and use the funds allocated for subsidies to renovate the dilapidated refineries? I think all it would cost is an absence of moral turpitude. Moving on, Hamza says, I just need to put it out that railway construction is very capital intensive. High-speed trains need to travel in a straight line, and it's even more expensive than regular trains. In the middle of competing high-priority demands, you need to balance and work within available means. Where are the funds to solve power, rail, education, etc., all at the same time? There's also a global crisis economically, and that's what Hamza from Ajaz says. And we've come to the end of the show, but not the end of the conversation, because these two gentlemen want to keep it going. Make sure you find them up on social media. You can send them messages on Twitter, Instagram at Monsieur C with a triple E and at Isoltena. Yes, there you go. And of course, we are at Smooth 98, Smooth 981 FM. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It was an interesting show. Coming up 8:15, it will be the great minor. Hey, Harry Song will be in. Make sure you join us.
woo!
And we're done.
I didn't even get to talk about the delegates.
I was just like, huh? As you guys go back and forth.
Mr. C, let me send you the act already. We have already the Electoral Act of 2022.
yeah.
So this is amending the Electoral Act of 2022.
Yeah, but so
You get-
yeah, so even though it's